Tommy Robinson, thank you for being here.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
You know, the first time I ever heard the name Tommy Robinson was over a decade ago when I came across some random YouTube videos of a young man on the streets of Britain who was speaking out against some of the not so savory aspects of Islam. What inspired you to first become an activist?
First becoming at Mold, what people know me for was when I formed an organisation called the English Defence League. We had a soldiers' homecoming parade through Luton that they were given the freedom of the city, and it was a Tuesday. And from that regiment, it's the Royal Anglian Regiment, which is our local regiment, Scott Muntridge, who was from my estate, he'd died. Michael Swain, who was another boy, who was 19, had lost his legs. So we went to pay our respects. But the day we went to pay our respects, as soon as I got down there, I saw large groups of police everywhere. And then I started spotting the extremists. And when I say the extremists, Luton was known by the CIA as the terrorist epicenter for Europe. Yeah, it's where all the terrorism plots were planned, lots of them. Fertiliser bomb plot, Luton. Stockholm bomber, Luton. 7/7, when they blew up the underground in London, they got on the train at Luton. So I knew lots of, I went to school with some of those radical jihadists. Al Mujahideen, which was Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza, some of the world's most famous terrorists. Their head office was in Luton. So when we went down to pay our respect to the soldiers, I started spotting all the radicals. And then I saw the police, and we have our town hall, so our government council building. The police walked them through. So they took them through. I thought, where are they taking them? They took a large group of Muslims through the town hall. And then I just heard commotion. As I've run to see what's going on, as the soldiers are marching here, the Muslim jihadists were taken through the town hall and put straight in front of them by the police. And as the soldiers went past, they were spitting at them. They spat at one of the soldiers' mums in her face. They were calling them baby killers, butchers of Basra. And I remember watching it. And then I run up there, and the anger of all the crowd and all the locals. But the police turned their back on the Muslim men. So as the Muslim men are all here abusing our soldiers, the police turned their back and started confronting the English supporters, the people who were there to pay their respects. And I saw the way it was policed. And after that, if you know the history of Luton, or people understand what I'd seen in my life, when I was born in 1982, there was one mosque. There's now upwards of 45. Yeah? I'd seen the demographic explode. As it exploded, I'd seen the unfair treatment, the iron fists given to our community and the kid gloves given to theirs. I'd seen the funding, extra funding that their community got. I'd watched two-tier policing, where just the police don't police them the same as us. They're scared of them. Yeah, I'd seen all of this. So when that happened against our soldiers, it was like, that was the final straw. And just said, they cannot be allowed to get away with this. What's next? They're going to turn up at a soldier's funeral. And then I organised an organisation. I set up a group called the United People of Luton. We wanted the world to know, because this was world news, this incident against our armed forces. People were angry everywhere, but as a Lutonian, this is our town. Like, every time anyone hears the name Luton town, it's Luton. I don't pronounce my T's. Every time anyone hears Luton town, then it's associated with terrorism, which winds us up. It annoys us, because there is a section of the town that's like that, but there's a section that are patriots. There's a section that love our armed forces, that respect our armed forces. So I set up a rally to support the armed forces. We turned up as a family, as a community. My aunties were there. There was women, there was children. And we wanted to get to the war memorial, the same war memorial that they allowed them to get to, yeah, the extremists. We weren't allowed to get there. The police held us for 3 hours. The police on horseback hit my friend's teeth out with a kosh. And I videoed the whole day. So I paid a wedding cameraman to come, because I know how we get policed. So I've grown up in the town. Yeah? It's like we're oppressed, they're not. So then I bought a cameraman, we recorded everything. And when the police turned up, they put their hands in our pockets. They made us take our shoes off. So we're standing in the street taking our shoes off as we're being searched. And on camera, I tell them, you didn't do this to them. Yeah, I watched what you done. You didn't search them. Yeah, you certainly didn't put your hands on them. And they held us for 3 hours. And my auntie had to urinate in the street. So we had women urinate in the street from where the police just kettled us for 3 hours. And again, they would never make a Muslim woman urinate in the street. They would never treat Muslim women like that. So then it became not just about what they'd done, but it then become about we are being treated differently. We're being funded differently. And then the United People of Luton, that grew the United People of Luton. We held another demonstration. After that, you spent time with us yesterday, yeah? After this, I set up a petition. And the petition was aimed at our council and police to demand that extremist jihadists are not allowed to recruit in our town centre. So we said we don't want these jihadists recruiting in our town centre. So we wanted, in England, we have an ASBO, an anti-social behaviour order. If two young kids are causing trouble at the shops together or causing criminality, they get given an order where they're not allowed to hang around with each other. So we said, we want these terrorists to have that order. Yeah? My auntie, my mum, my daughter, anyone like that should be able to walk through Luton Town Centre without being accosted or attempt to be recruited and converted by these jihadists. So that's what we asked the police for. And from the first demonstration, the next week, they raided 14 of our houses. The police did. They went to my mum's house. I wasn't there. And when they raided everyone's houses, they gave them no charges, made up charges, like you've heard as we travelled yesterday. And the bail conditions were not to enter Luton Town Centre 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. So what we wanted them to do to the jihadists, they done to us. So the next demonstration, everyone put balaclavas on, and that's what grabbed the world's headlines.
So your concern went from an unfair treatment to something more. It was a concern for the young ladies.
So with regards to so growing up in Luton again, my cousin was a victim of grooming gangs. They're called grooming gangs. They're actually rape jihad gangs. So this may sound to an American audience, what I'm about to go through now is going to sound absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. And when I started talking about it, that's how the British public reacted. So what I started saying, because my cousin was 14 years old and they hooked her on heroin and they'd rape her. She was found naked running from the Muslim community, down the street. It was actually street prostitutes who found the young girl who's 14. They rang her dad. Her dad's gone and got her. She woke up in a room with 10 men, all raping her, all raping her. But then the police would just say, well, she's a drug addict. Yes, she's a drug addict, because that's what they do. There's a process in the UK. Young Muslims become friends with non-Muslim girls. They then get them into positions where they like them. They then introduce them to their older brothers. They then give them money. They buy them shoes. They give them phones. They treat them okay for 6 months. They get them into position and then bang, they're gang raped. And once they're gang raped, they've already started to feed them drugs. And those girls then become a slave, literally a slave. So I started talking about that. As soon as I created an organisation, and we were on the streets, I was giving speeches saying that we're fed up of losing our daughters. We're fed up of the police inaction. And then I went on to big talk shows in the UK and I got rubbished, absolutely rubbished by everyone. And I said, they're literally coming to school gates and collecting children, and no one's doing anything about it. And I formed the English Defence League in 2009 and we were screaming in the streets. We had signs that said our daughters are not halal meat. We had, if you go back through the marches, I've done a presentation on this. I've done a big presentation where I go back to what we were singing, Muslim pedos off our streets. This is 2009, 2010. Come 2014, 15, a government report into a town called Rotherham broke the subject, said that in this one town called Rotherham, over a 14-year period, 1,400 English girls, white English girls, had been kidnapped, raped, tortured, and some killed. And they accepted that all of the gangs were Pakistani Muslim men, and the police reports, they had evidence. The girls had gone to the police. They didn't charge them. They just let them do it. And people talk about the power of political correctness. It's that powerful. And fear is paralysing. And our entire political establishment and police forces in every city in this country were paralysed with fear because they didn't want to be called racist. So they let a generation of girls be raped. So obviously we pushed that. If you draw a graph and you have arrests like this for grooming, what they call grooming, which is groups of men who know each other, who target young girls and rape them together. Brothers do it together, fathers and sons. Some of these cases have involved fathers and sons raping. So you draw a graph like this, you've got all the arrests. English Defence League forms in 2009, boom, the arrests go through the roof because they could no longer hide it. When men were on the street, we were on the streets of every city.
Mm-hmm. Now, supposedly you have freedom of speech and freedom of the press in the UK, but for you, that freedom's been rather costly. You've been arrested. You've served time in prison. They've tried to bankrupt you. You told me yesterday you've had several cars torched. Is it all still worth it, and why?
There's two different things. So when I started the English Defence League, I used a fake name and I wore a mask for a reason that if you talk against Muhammad or you talk against Islam, you're in danger. You're in a threat of serious violence. I knew that. I was prepared for that. The biggest shock to me has been the state, the British state, the police state. it's been far worse. I was ready for threats of violence. I was ready to be beaten up. I've had 12 government Osman warnings. An Osman warning is where the government have intelligence of serious threat to your life. There's 6 Muslims in jail doing 30 years. They got caught with guns and bombs. All of that, okay, I know what Islam says. If you criticise Muhammad, I know what jihadists think, yeah, and they want to kill people. But I fought in 2009, when I started my activism, that I lived in the beacon of democracy and freedom of speech. I believed that was the country I lived in. Within the first 6 months, my house was raided 3 times by the police. I had unlawful bail conditions limiting my freedom of speech, taken away. I wasn't allowed to send emails. My bail conditions were not to send emails, not to use the internet, not to use the internet, yeah? Not to use the internet, not to use social media, all of these things, but that hasn't stopped since 2009. There's not one point, as we sit here now, there's not been one single time since 2009 that I haven't been awaiting a court case. I haven't. There's not been not one period where I've said, no court. I'm waiting for court now. I've got a court case on the 23rd of April. I've got the Attorney General has sent me a letter already that I'm facing 2 years in prison for making a film. For making a film. So to Americans, you really need to understand, which many of you are now with lawfare, that they come from every angle. So obviously I was talking about things no one wants to talk about. I was highlighting the problems that come from open border immigration. You want to create this so-called loving utopia of multiculturalism that doesn't work. And unfortunately, we started to highlight the problems that come from it. And so people can understand Luton Town is the most diverse town in Europe. Yeah. Every one of my sons, if you line us up, my mum was an immigrant. Every one of my sons are the sons of immigrants. They're black, they're white, they're yellow. We're all different colours. Everyone gets on pretty well in Luton, but the Islamic community totally isolate themselves. They do not integrate. They do not assimilate. There's hostility. There's aggression. There's a whole different mindset that people just don't understand if they've not grown up there. They don't understand. And so yeah, the biggest thing for me was the British police state. As you said, I've been in jail. I've been in 10 different prisons, proven unlawful. But the problem is, when they create these cases against you, we should have a fair and balanced media. But the unfair and unbalanced media act as a propaganda machine to push the lies that the state are aiming on you. And I've done presentations in Denmark's parliament where I prove lie after lie after lie, and I prove it with evidence. I'm doing a documentary now. You travelled to Wales yesterday. We've been to Scotland. I'm making a documentary now called Lawfare: The British Police State, so that the average British person who does not understand how they operate, and the average person who, like me in 2009, thinks, we've got freedom of speech. What are you talking about? There's freedom in the press. There's not. There's not. Try talking about saying, and the goalposts continually shift. So some people sit there and celebrate the fact that my freedom of speech has come under attack, or that I face prison, yeah, because they disagree with my politics. Well, when we started talking about it, I was the first person in the UK that was censored and deleted from all social media. Never tried by court. I've never been committed of a hate crime. Never been done for racism or anything like that. Yet they made me a figure of hate. Yeah, without any evidence. They just said I'm a figure of hate because I talk about issues. From them saying I'm a figure of hate, I've been cancelled, but the goalposts have moved. So people celebrating this, or people with opposing views to me, you may find yourself on the right side of free speech now, but that's shifted. It went from Tommy Robinson getting censored, and that's quite good because he's against open border immigration, to doctors, nurses during COVID, during vaccines, to transgenderism. If you want to talk against the sexualization of children now, you're a hateful bigot as well. You've seen some of the biggest, so the goalposts continually change. And when we allow the state, or even the state and their controlled media, to dictate to us what we can talk about and what we can't, and people talk about freedom of speech, is it free if it has consequence? If you lose your job, it's not free. How many people, if you go speak to people in England, I've done it in Ireland, where on covert recordings, ask people in the street their opinions on immigration. They all openly tell you when they don't think they're being recorded. They'll say, can I just get a camera? No. Literally petrified. So they've installed a level of fear in people, rightfully so, because those people are fearful of their jobs, they're fearful of their careers, they're fearful of cancel culture, which is a weapon of the state. It's a controlled weapon of the state to make sure people are too fearful of talking.
You talked about the deep state. You and I talked yesterday about the similarities between what's going on with you, the media, politicians, the government, how you're being treated, and the similarities between what's going on in our country with Donald Trump and others who speak out. And it seems to be a product of Western culture, what's going on in Western culture with the deep state and politics right now. You said something to me I thought was interesting. You said that we're the last generation who knows what it was like to be free. If we don't do something,
Well,
nobody will. What did you mean by that
I
exactly?
mean, if you look at the statistic, if you look at the mindset of the new generation coming through the education system, 90% of professors in universities in our country are far left ideologies. 90%. Yeah? So the indoctrination that's going on through the education system, and you can see this by how many of the American population, our age or our generation, are supportive of Israel, and the new generation who just hate Israel, hate Jews, and are supportive of Palestine. As we go down through the generations, the new generations don't want free speech. Yeah, we want free speech. They don't want it because they're being indoctrinated to believe speech is violence. Yeah, hate speech, which no one can define. So I think that, and again, if we talk about people censoring me, attacking me, or lawfare against me, some people don't care. If you talk about people attacking Donald Trump, yeah, there'll be a 50% or a large portion of the United States that don't actually care that he's being attacked. But they need to understand that you're hearing about what's going on to Donald Trump because he still has a voice and a platform, and the media is still covering it. But how many other people on either side of politics are facing these intrusive measures, are being silenced, are having their freedom taken away, are facing unjust prison sentences, all to do with the politicisation of our judiciary. So it's not, and I'm about to prove that in the UK. In my documentary, I will totally prove. I've done a film called Silenced as well, which went out in America. It's a film that I will get 2 years in jail for. I'm waiting on the court date now from my British government. Yeah, that film categorically proves the corruption of the judiciary. They lied about. They got a case where they took me to court. They bankrupted me for £1.6 million, and it was all a lie. And I proved it a lie. But when I proved it a lie with covert recordings and evidence of multiple witnesses. When I proved it a lie, they literally give me a court injunction demanding my silence. And there's lots like in America, I'll talk about this because Laura Loomer can't. Laura Loomer is under court silenced injunctions that prevent her from even telling you things that have gone on. So they're already using these court injunctions. I've got another court injunction. I created an expose of a journalist who wasn't a journalist. She was an activist. She works with far left violent organisations, and she uses her platform to attack people based on politics. So I started creating a documentary. I was given a court order that for 5 years I'm not allowed to mention her name. If I mention that journalist's name now, I go to jail. Yeah? How many people and how many media outlets and how many alternative journalists and citizen journalists are now going to face this? Are going to face these court orders, these silencing measures?
If we look at Hollywood, if we look at the media, politicians, general society, it seems to be okay if you want to mock any religion, you want to mock Christ. There's hundreds of movies we could point out where they mock Christ or other religious figures. But when it comes to Islam, that's not the case. Why is that?
Islam's given us a special protection. It's like, look, I talk about Islam, okay? And I differentiate Muslims from Islam, which is an important step to do as well.
Why is that?
Because if you hate Muslims, you're hating people. And some of the best people I've met growing up in Luton, some of the people I love are Muslims. Yeah? They don't follow Islam to the word. Islam is an ideology, it's a book, and it has a prophet that was around, a false prophet that was around 1400 years ago. A prophet who murdered 600 people one day. A prophet who raped, pillaged. He was a warrior. Yeah. So to criticise and talk about this is our God-given right. And if there's flaws in this book that 4 million people in the UK are told he's perfect, we need to understand them. Yeah. You criticise Islam, everyone says you're racist. If I was talking about Christianity and I was talking about Jesus, no one's going to call me racist. So why is this special protection or Islamophobe? A phobia is an irrational fear. It's very rational. In the UK, we've got 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 55,000 British Muslim girls have had female genital mutilation. Yeah? So we can go through all 60%, the arrest rates go up every year. 4 times more British Muslims joined ISIS than ever joined the British military. All of these sorts of facts. Muslim men make up 2.5% of the British population. They are responsible for 90% of the convictions of groups of men who rape children. 90% from 2.5%. Right? Something's going on here, yeah? And we're not even allowed to talk about it. And all these things, it's rational as an Englishman, especially as a father, to look at these and say, let's talk about them. That's not irrational. So there's no Islamophobia. There's no such word as Islamophobia. Again, you're trying to prevent criticism of Islam. Islam must be criticised. People need to understand what it is because it's going to be a growing dominant force. And because of the way the Muslim community organise themselves in a military fashion. Islam is more than a religion. It's a total political ideology. Yeah? People need to get it. We need to understand it as it grows, as they become more powerful. And we're seeing it in towns and cities. We've just seen an election in Rochdale where they've won the election. And when I say they've won the election, radical Islamists have won the election.
If Islam is the religion of peace, why are people so scared to speak out against it?
You know the term Islam, the religion of peace. I wrote a book, and I went through history. That's never been said until George W. Bush. And it's always the one where say a lie 1,000 times, it becomes the truth. So we hear so many people say, Islam. I was on a debate with an imam. He said the word Islam means peace. No, it doesn't. It translates as submit, surrender. The total bloody opposite. Yeah? And when I'm sitting with the imam and I called him out on it, he went, yeah. I said, no, what do you mean, yeah? You've just sat here to an audience and said that Islam means peace, yeah? When it actually means surrender. Yeah? That's the total opposite. I said, am I right or are you right? He said, no, you're right. I said, so the problem is you lot have been able to sit on platforms like this and just lie. Yeah, and no one's called you out. I've never seen a journalist. I've seen imam after imam after imam sitting on my TV. Yeah, and I'm thinking, ask them this, ask them this. I know what you need to ask them, and they're never asked it because they're given like a free cushioned rein, and it's problematic. And I've had my local imam his name was Kadir Bask in Luton Town Centre. He's got 3 wives, 14 children. He's the leader of a mosque called the Luton Islamic Centre. I understand that mosque. When I first started my activism, I translated their website. There was 8-page justification of why a woman should be lashed for adultery. An 8-page justification. Justification for why homosexuals should be executed. This is on the mosque website. And no one's actually even translating this to understand what this mosque is saying. So Luton, when I started my activism, my council set up a Luton in Harmony programme to say that we're all in harmony. We're out there. We're on the outside. Who's sitting around the table for Luton in Harmony? Kadir Bask, the imam. I'm on the news. They're on the news because I've left the English Defence League 2015. Kadir Bask is on the radio, the imam, on my local radio in my town saying I'm an extremist. But it's my town centre. So I walk into the town centre and I walk into the radio. And the radio host says, well, Tommy Robinson does live in Luton. He just walked in. I said, I have just walked in. So let me grab a seat and let's talk. Yeah. I said, Kadir, I said, because the radio host is gay as well. Yeah. I said, why don't you ever ask the questions? I said, let's have a chat. We're on the radio. Can we chat? And then the Kadir didn't want to, yeah, but the bloke said, no, come on, let's talk. So I said, in your ideal society, Kadir, yeah? He said, no, we don't, there won't be punishment, there's no punishments in Britain. I said, no, I'm not asking about Britain. I'm asking, in your ideal society, if you had your ideal society, what would the punishment be for homosexuals? Would there be a punishment? He said, yes, there would. I said, so tell everyone what it would be in your ideal society. And he can't say no, because he will lose the faith of all his followers because they know what they believe. He can't go back on it. And then he sat and he admitted that homosexuals will be executed. And I'm looking at the radio host and I'm said, how is someone sitting around the table for Luton in Harmony? Where's the harmony for the gay members of our community? Yeah, when there's a difference between being opposed to same-sex marriage or having an idea on these things. Yeah, but this man will kill them. Yeah? And he's round my table. And these men have worked their way up in our government. They're part of all the diversity courses, these radicals. So that's Kadir Bask. So from that, his school, he's a head teacher of a school. They raided the school. Yeah, this went all news everywhere. They raided his school the next week. They found school books in the children's library about cutting off the hands and feet. Yeah, then Khalid Masood commits a terrorist attack on Westminster Bridge. You may remember it. He does this big terrorist attack, kills loads of people. Khalid Masood was number 2 at his mosque. It's like I've been screaming about this mosque for 10 years. You've had him around the table with you. But then that's just one example. And so after he gets exposed, I'm working with, and this is so you understand the infiltration of your government and your government bodies and every institution. I'm then working with someone who deals with racism, yeah? Because I'm against racism, right? So, and the far right. I'm against the real far right, yeah? Not people who have an opinion that you want to label far right. Again, I'm against Nazism, Islamism, that idea. They're opposite sides of the same coin. The hate, the fury that comes from it. So I'm working with someone who trains the police on racism, yeah? And I'm doing these courses with him and discussing with him. And he went to educate the police. And who was there educating the police on Islam when he got there? Kadir Bask. So Kadir Bask, who's that mosque was where the Stockholm bomber went. So this is it's gone now. He's had to leave the UK now, yeah, because he got outed. It went massive. But he's training our police We've just had recently, we found out that another extremist who's screaming from the river to the sea and wants to execute all the Jews, he is part of the CPS governing body. So they have infiltrated everything. And the thing is, most people know it, but they're too scared to say it.
As you know, because of our current president and his policies, we're also having an immigration crisis at our borders. What do you think the similarities are between your immigration crisis here in the UK and the one that we're experiencing in the US?
It's not organic. If anyone thinks that your borders have it's a mistake that 8 million people have come through since Joe Biden at the same time. So if you look in Europe, basically, by taking out Gaddafi, they opened the gates of Europe. Yeah, if Gaddafi was there, that wouldn't have happened. Okay, they couldn't come through North Africa. So by taking out Gaddafi, they opened the gates of Europe. Literally, NGO boats, which is where the problem is, because I've looked at how they're doing it to America as well. They're given their plans, they're given places to stop, they're given food. They're literally planning caravans all the way into the United States. NGOs, some of them funded by the German government, these boats, they literally just get off the coast of Libya, like 100 meters off the coast of Libya. They then get picked up by government funded, European Union funded. The United Nations are behind a lot of this. They literally pick them up and then they're brought in. To think that we couldn't stop this if we wanted to, it's absurd. So then people need to understand is, well, what is happening with the immigration crisis? What's going on? They are literally importing millions. They've done it into the UK. They've done it across the whole of Europe. They are changing the faces of our nations forever. And again, you need to understand how quickly this is going to happen. Because as I said, I'm from Luton. There was one boss that's 45. Not just how quickly it will happen, but America needs to brace themselves because you've had Mexican immigration. Yeah, I remember sitting there when Americans were really moaning about. I understand the cartels, I understand the violence, but I remember looking to thinking, oh, I wish we had Mexican immigration. Yeah, from Luton, because I know Catholics come and there's problems. Yeah, but certain sections of communities, I've seen that Christians from Nigeria come. Okay, all these different backgrounds, Sikhs come, Hindus come, they all come, but per se it's all right. You have no idea. Your immigration system used to only allow educated people with wealth and money to come into your country. Your borders have been open for the last 3, 4, 5 years in a massive way that are allowing tribalistic mindsets from the caves in Afghanistan now, yeah, and Pakistan. Rural areas are now flooding their way into your country, and that is going to cause you generational problems that you have no idea. You have no idea of the power of them. And you just people cannot fathom the togetherness, the brotherhood that Islam gives, where if you mess with one, you might as well call the war on with the whole tribe. Mm-hmm. Yeah? They will not back down. Islam will not change. America will have to change. You will have to sacrifice parts of your culture, parts of what you do as a country to succumb and to appease. And that's what your politicians will do, because their demographic will grow so quick, so fast, and you'll become irrelevant, and that's what we've seen. White working class are irrelevant now.
Do you think the politicians are doing anything about it, or do they even want to do anything about it?
No, they're actively allowing it. Mm-hmm. They're actively allowing it. Again, to say that, you don't think we can stop this? Mm-hmm. You don't think the American military could stop it if they wanted to? Is it national security? Of course it is. You have no idea who's coming. The amount of terrorists who have been stopped at your border. How many are coming through? It's a ticking time bomb. Who's trying to send it through? Who's orchestrating it? It's like they are breaking down Western civilization. Our culture, everything about us is under attack from every angle. Yeah? We are becoming weak. Our men are becoming feminized. Our resistance is disappearing. Who we are is disappearing. Our pride has gone. If we had pride in this country, or we were proud of who we are and our communities, we would never allowed this to happen. But they've broke down our resistance and broke down our identity so much that the new generation coming through from Great Britain are totally lost. And that's why I say it's our generation. The last stand is our generation, because the new generation don't even know if they're a boy or girl. Yeah? Mm-hmm. They have got in their minds. I see the LGBTQ numbers for the United States is over 25% of the millennials. This is insane. Yeah, this isn't. People don't just think this has happened.
Yeah, it used to be a fraction of a percent.
But don't think this is a mistake. Mm-hmm. If you look at it and think, oh no, your population has been targeted. Mm-hmm. They've been targeted here. We're in a war of propaganda. We're in a war of the mind, mm-hmm. and we're losing that war.
In the United States, there's a belief that the immigration is allowed to continue by one party in order to increase their electorate. Do you think that has something to do with immigration here as well?
100%. Well, I don't think Tony Blair, who was in charge of the Labour Party, said that he opened the borders to rub the right's nose in it. But Labour have just had a shock because now the Muslim community are turning on Labour because Labour's politicians, your Democrats, didn't all demand a ceasefire. They didn't all side with Palestine. Any of them that didn't now, whereas Muslims were always part of the Labour Party and they'd vote in bloc for Labour Party, they're putting up their own people now. So they're having a shock. And I think the Democrat Party, they relied, when we talk about slavery, your plantations have continued with the blacks, yeah? And they've been kept in poverty. 20% in the 1960s, 20% of black families didn't have a dad. Now it's 80%. Again, does anyone actually think that's organically happened?
Those numbers are correct.
Planned Parenthood, targeting of the family. Why are they targeting the family? Barack Obama gave these statistics. The facts are that if they take away the dad, yeah, then they have then people involved in criminality. They've got guaranteed people in the prison system, and they've got guaranteed people who are not successful, who are reliant on the state. So they had the black community. Donald Trump comes along. He makes black unemployment the lowest it's been. Blacks start seeing an opportunity that actually, if you close the borders, we're going to get the jobs. The biggest percent of people who are hooked on drugs, 18 to 24-year-old black Americans. Yeah, all the problems that come from the immigration, the open border policy, first affect the black community. So now, they then start aspiring to be better, realizing they can be better. Many of them are shifting over to Republicans. Open the borders, bring in a new class. So they're bringing in a new class and underclass that aren't American. Yeah,
They're replacing the voters.
They're replacing the voters of the blacks.
Or
When people talk about institutional racism, that's the racism. That's the only racism. I was just looking in amazement when you have people in my country. I have friends who are black, who it's like you haven't even looked at anything that you're talking about. You are buying the propaganda from the mainstream media, which is. Their job is to make sure that everyone is pro-open borders. They want to attack anyone who stands against it, like us. We spoke against it, and you're not based with any facts. You've got that whole entire generation who base their opinion based on emotions, yeah? Emotions on lies they've been told. So yeah, I think that they're replacing not just the Americans, not just the white Americans. The blacks are being replaced. They're bringing in a new class, which are going to be hostile. New levels of violence are coming in.
Tommy, you've transitioned from an activist to a journalist working for an outlet called Urban Scoop.
Yep.
And you were working in your capacity as a journalist recently when you were arrested for reporting on anti-Semitism.
It was anti-Semitism, really, and I just went to report. So I went in my capacity as a journalist to report. I've reported on. I've gone to Polish Independence Day. I've gone to mass demonstrations, Brexit demonstrations, pro-EU demonstrations. I go as a journalist. It's my job. Yeah, I go as a journalist and I report on and give people a balanced report rather than the media trying to give their swing on it. So, and people rely on me to do that because they don't trust the media. I personally think that I received at the previous one I went to, I received a hero's reception. Not many. It's quite easy to be pro-Palestine in today's society. Yeah, I come out. I'm not pro-Palestine. Okay, I understand what it's like with a hostile Islamic community. I understand not every Palestinian is a problem. But I also understand that Hamas are racist, yeah? I know who they are. We know what their mindset is. First the Jews, then the Christians. This is openly their ideology is of world domination, of a caliphate state. And I've called them out time and time again. So when I went to report, I sat down and had a breakfast. Police come in from everywhere and say, they said, you need to leave the city.
And you're a journalist.
I'm a journalist. I'm there, hired to be there. Now, they give me a Section 35 dispersal order. So they have powers to give dispersal orders if they believe that there's going to be violence, yeah? And it's like everyone, when I was sat there, you can watch the video, everyone's just coming taking pictures and thanking me for my reporting and my work. So
as my understanding of Section 35 is if a person's exhibiting antisocial behavior.
Yeah, antisocial behavior. So then they can say, we believe you're going to be a problem and you need to leave. But they're only allowed to leave an area. Yeah, not allowed to leave an entire city. You're only allowed to leave an area. And one of the conditions under Section 35 is the police can't give you it if someone's hired to be there. So if you're at work, they can't come in and say, "Yo, you've got to leave." Yeah. But that's what they did. And then I sat there and I said, "I'm here to report." And then I read out insanely. The police put out a statement the day before because at the Palestine demonstration the day before, journalists were coming under violent attack and they were coming under hostility and told they couldn't report there. So the Palestinian supporters were stopping the media reporting. The police come out and made a very strong statement on freedom of the press and freedom of speech and said that journalists must be free to come to demonstrations and cover them without harassment. Yeah. So I just read their statement to them and said, hold on, like you said this yesterday. Yeah. What's the difference now? I'm here to report. They actually, when I left after my breakfast, again, there was mass crowds there. I asked, they said that the reason they were giving for that was that my presence could cause someone to feel tense. To feel tense. It's like, if that was the case, I'd have to stay inside my house for the rest of my life. Because I talk about issues that right now, the new generation are tense about everything. Yeah?
Right.
You can't even speak without everyone getting tense. So, again, I've never been arrested, convicted, tried on anything I've said. There's no one's ever pointed to anything I've said that's actually factually incorrect. It's like, so facts, facts make people tense, yeah? Opinions make people tense. But as I left after having a breakfast, I was violently attacked by the police, and it's all there on camera. As I'm being dragged out of there, I'm held, 30 police officers. Now, this went viral in a massive way in the UK because since October 7th, literally October the 8th and 9th, pro-Hamas supporters were on the streets of our capital. We've seen Hamas flags, we've seen ISIS flags, we've seen leaders of Islamic organisations calling for jihad on the streets, calling for jihad in sermons in mosques. Yeah, we've seen all this hate, and the police have done nothing. Right? Literally, there's no police. They're climbing up our war memorials, our monuments, desecrating them. Okay, and the police are standing by. Again, everything I've seen the whole way through growing up. Right? They don't deal with the criminality. They actually can't deal with it. And we've seen police officers. So there's a lad with an English flag, and the police come over and say, "You're going to have to take the flag down." Yeah, and the pro-Palestinian rallies are going on, and he's like, "What?" And the police officer just says, "There's more of them than there are of us."
So the police are afraid.
They're terrified. Not just afraid, they're terrified. Because if they policed them properly, this whole country would have burned already, and they know that. Muslims would.
So you can't even fly the English flag.
No, there's multiple examples. Again, this may sound unbelievable to people. There are multiple examples of this, which I'm putting into my documentary. When you watch my documentary, you'll see the way we're policed and you'll see the way they're policed. Again, I was arrested and from point blank range. They sprayed me in the eyes with pepper spray when I was handcuffed. And then they justified it all because it's like, and then the maddest part of it is, I've been charged. I faced 3 months in prison because I went to report on the demonstration, and no one bats an eyelid. So whilst they take away your rights, they take away your God-given rights, your democratic rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, all these things, it's celebrated. The media celebrate it. Your people who hate you celebrate it without realising that it's me today, it's them tomorrow. Yeah?
What do you need in order to defend yourself? How can people help you defend yourself?
So I don't believe you. I personally don't believe you can defend yourself. In the judiciary in the UK, I've never had a jury. Okay, I'm put before judges who convict me every time. Okay, I've never had a jury, even when I produce all the evidence, yeah? Factual evidence, videos, proof that what they're saying I've done, I didn't do. Doesn't matter, I still get convicted. So
for the people in America, is there no right to a jury trial in the UK?
No, there's only one offence where you can get 2 years in prison without a jury. It's called contempt of court. I'm on my third contempt of court. Yeah. Because then they can get you in, give you 2 years in prison, and you don't get a jury. Now, what they do each time with my cases is they drop them. So you should have a jury. Try me with 12 members of the British public, and I will never get convicted, and they will call out your lies. Put me before an appointed judge each time, which is what keeps happening, and I'm sent to jail. Yeah? I'm sent to jail. So this current documentary that I'm making, which is Lawfare, I'm showing people the cost of fighting for freedom, because the punishment is the process. For this incident where I got pepper sprayed when I went to report, by the time I get to trial, which is 23rd of April, I'm going to have spent £55,000, $65,000. So if I don't get convicted, and it gets proven, because I've had lots of cases as well that have got kicked out on legalities where it's just nonsense, yeah, or they've dropped them. If I get to that point, since that day, November 26th, I've been banned from my capital city. I'm not allowed in London. Right? That's preventing my journalism, preventing my work. They've had me under a control order when I've done nothing wrong, as well as costing me $65,000, as well as the stress toll, all of these things in your life. That, as I said, the process is the punishment as well. It's not necessarily the prison. It's the entire thing.
This week, we spent the better part of this week together. You invited me to travel the country with you, and we've gone from Luton to Wales to Scotland and back, because people have called you, your countrymen have called you for help because no one else would offer. Why do you think that is? Why are they calling you, and why won't anyone help them?
If you look at the European Union, there was a poll done from the public in the European Union on the trust of media. And the British public have the biggest distrust, not the former communist states that had communist media. The British public are totally distrustful of our media now because we've seen them lie about so many things, about immigration, about vaccines, about COVID, about lockdowns, just lie, all the way through. So people have realised that. And unfortunately, my journalism, and I've done plenty of documentaries now. I'm on eight feature-length films where I've gone in and investigated. And at times, so I investigate grooming gangs. I've done a 5-part series looking at the gangs and investigating them. I spent 12 to 18 months telling the story of 12 women and literally doing a police investigation for that 18 months to go after the gangs, find out who they were, where they worked, where they lived. We put trackers on them, we surveillanced them. Now, my MO is that Pakistani Muslim men are raping kids. There was one case where a girl had said the same in the north of England. And on that documentary, I'm the only journalist in the country that worked to prove the Muslim men's innocence. So people trust my journalism and they trust my honesty, where if it goes against my narrative, I don't really care, to be honest. The truth's the truth. And these people don't feel they can trust the media.
You said yesterday, we talked about, you said the mood has changed across the UK regarding immigration and liberalism. Now, you've been labeled a racist and a homophobe for years now, simply for reporting or coming to the defense of innocent young girls in your country who've been abused by immigrants. And are there any other prominent politicians or people in the media who are agreeing with you now?
And now there is, yes. So remember, 15 years ago, this was a lonely place, talking about these issues. Lonely and faced serious consequence of violence, of attacks, of ordinary people also believing you're something else. We've spent a few days together. Have you seen any negative receptions?
Not the first.
No.
Not the first.
So the public, and for me, remember, I've walked these streets, everywhere. People would spit on me 15 years ago. Yeah?
They treat you like Robin Hood. If I had to had to compare you to anyone, that's kind of what I would.
But they didn't. Yeah. But they didn't. So they didn't, and they didn't because they didn't because they were being conditioned. And if you look at, and they've been told things about me, and I can pick up certain videos, I can, and they've had to change. I can pick up videos. There's been hit pieces done for me by the media, and I always used to want to defend myself. And when I was censored 5 years ago, I felt powerless. But then I saw, as the public defended me, in every pick any article from the media where they talk about me, they take the comments off now. They don't allow comments because literally every single comment will be calling them liars, saying they support me. The politicians, our leader of our country and the opposition both condemned me last week in Parliament. Yeah, every comment underneath, every news source underneath every article was calling them out, not me. So when I talk about a shift that's happened, that's not just happened here. There's a major swing, and I think now I'm excited. I've got goosebumps sitting here thinking about it now, because for 15 years, last 10 years, it was terrible. I'm still concerned massively about the future of Europe, about our countries. But I've always said, and I remember saying, none of us are going to be in control of the moment that changes this. Northern Ireland, Bloody Sunday changed the full direction of Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland, the full direction. And what we're currently seeing now, I said, none of us are going to be in control, but something's going to happen. That swing from left to right is going to happen. And when it happens, it's going to be so quick, so fast. And you see all the people who've been silenced. Like, when that happens, they're going to be screaming. And I think we're bordering on that now. We're bordering on that now. And for me, it's I probably need to be less emotional and less bitter with the people who condemn me, because the people who condemn me, call me an extremist or a racist, are now literally parroting exactly what I said on their shows, and it upsets me, because I'm like, hold on, you said this, you've been part of the machine, yeah. But then
that was your ultimate goal, though, right? To inform everyone. So it's
I need to grow up a bit on that stage.
Yeah.
Little stop, and I think it's because of what my family have suffered. It's because I've been in prisons, and then I get so frustrated with them. But then now I thought about it the other week, and some of them contacted me. One of them.
You told me something that shocked me. You told me that the #1 podcaster in the UK, a guy by the name of Constantine, had reached out to you recently to apologize. What did he say exactly?
Well, he was literally saying what I've been saying, So I messaged him. No, so I put a post up saying, looking at his education, yeah? Saying, so the problem we have is, you think, because of your education, because you're privately funded, private school, you've come from wealth, all of these sorts of things, you think that you can now say this, yeah? But you have been, and then I've dug up old tweets where he sort of condemned me or my mindset, but now you're saying exactly what I'm saying. So I put it out and then I received a message. Hey mate, I don't like to get in public spats with people. I appreciate some of the things I've said may seem unfair or unpleasant. I'm guessing there are things you might have said or done in the past that with the benefit of hindsight, you would prefer not to have said or done them. I'm not snobbish towards you or anyone, and once I become aware of the things happening in our country, I started speaking up about it. And just like you, I didn't always phrase it right. In my world, everyone called you far right and a Nazi, so that was all I knew. As you say yourself, my views on things have evolved fairly recently, as before that I was busy trying to make my way in the world and wasn't paying attention to any of this. I have no beef with you. I agree with some of the things you say and disagree on others, like any human. But our society is in real trouble and we have a contribution to make in all our own ways. Yeah. Now, which is great. So I read that. I deleted what I said. Yeah. And I read that in the sense that certain demographics will listen to me. It's gone broader now. Lots more people are listening to me and understanding we were telling the truth. But there's other demographics in the UK due to our class systems that don't like the way I speak. Don't like the fact I didn't go to have the education that I should have had or speak the way I should have had. Yeah. But on many of these issues, which I tried to remind them all, and I was debating. I was on a big debate show, and I was debating this gentleman who's the UK's biggest expert on multiculturalism. And as I'm debating him, I'm sat in Luton, we're on the screen. I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in Brussels." I said, "Where were you born?" And he said, "Exeter." I just start laughing. Yeah. Exeter's 99.999% white Christian. Huh? There's not a mosque there. Huh? So I said, how are you an expert? How are you an expert? What are you talking about? It's like thinking you can read a book on building a brick wall and then go out and build a brick wall. You've got no idea what you're talking about. Right? You've got no idea. You've got no life experience. I've been through this entire life. And I actually traveled to America in 2010. I gave a speech called A Warning to America. And when I gave that speech, I said, I really wish someone would come to my town 30 years ago and just laid it out. Right? Laid out the difference between immigration and legal immigration and illegal immigration, but Islamic immigration, and how the power that they will gather and the way they will organise themselves. So lots of people come around to our way of thinking.
So do you feel vindicated?
I feel totally, everywhere. And I don't have to feel people every day. My name has trended. It was trending 2 weeks non-stop, yeah, on all social medias, and every comment is, "But look what you said to Tommy Robinson." But so, as we go forward, I don't even need to fight that fight because everyone fights it for me. I said, I should feel lonely, and when I've been put in prison, I remember walking into prison, and when I turned up to walk into prison for reporting, the noise and the feeling and emotion of thousands that were there on a weekday. I said, they bring me here. They put me in these positions to make me feel isolated or alone. I feel like I've got an army behind me, even when I'm walking on my own. So even when I'm walking on my own. So, and I also know the passion that people feel. I know people feel emotionally attached to my story. I know that they think that when I'm suffering for saying things, it's for them. So they've never been able to break. They've tried everything to make me a toxic person. They've tried everything to silence me, but none of it's worked. None of it's worked. All they've done is actually galvanise support behind me.
Mm-hmm. A couple of stops. We went and investigated a couple of cases this week. One was the story of Chris Donald, a young man who was brutally murdered 20 years ago, and his family when they reached out to you. The other was the Stratty Park hotel case. Can you tell me just a little bit about both of those?
So Chris Donald was 15 years old, and a Pakistani gang who were adult males, 25, 26, 27 years old, all criminals, went out with the intention of kidnapping the first white person they found. The white person they found was a 15-year-old schoolboy. They dragged him off the street. They drove him around for hours in the floorway of the car. They stabbed him 13 times, and they set fire to him whilst he was still alive. And he was running whilst he was on fire. They murdered him. Now, this was 20 years ago. Now, when this murder happened, I've always been politically aware of things that are going on. When this murder happened, it didn't make one single newspaper in England. This happened in Scotland. We're obviously Great Britain. It didn't make any newspapers in England or Wales or Ireland.
It was the first of its kind, right?
This was the first ever racially motivated murder. Now, if you go online now, and Stephen Lawrence was as well, he was murdered by a racist white gang. His mother has been given a seat in the House of Lords. She's a baroness. There's a museum named after him. There's roads named after him. There's entire days named after him. There's everything. Yeah? So if you search, there was another gentleman called Aftab Ali who was murdered again. He's got an entire big park and memorial and shrine named after him. His name will live on. Yeah? Each victim of any of these crimes, and I actually done a video where I went to the spot where people like this were murdered, yeah? And they've all got these memorials and they're all recognised and their name lives on. Not when they're a white victim. No one, and again, 90% of the country are white. Yeah? I've gone to, when Black Lives Matter hit off, I went to a big conference in Brixton, a predominantly black community. In fact, I was the only white face there. There's 80 black people from the community. And I just stood up and said, who's Chris Donald? This was years ago. They all looked around. I said, who's Gavin? And I named 4 kids, 4 white children who have been savagely tortured, beaten, murdered for the purpose of being white, yeah, in Britain. And none of them knew any of their names. I said, do you want me to tell you that? I said, who's Stephen Lawrence? You all know who Stephen Lawrence is, don't you? Yeah. I said, because when a black person's murdered by someone that's white, the media, the machine, below it, George Floyd, for example. Yeah? Plenty of cases like George Floyd that have happened to white people in the United States. Plenty worse videos of what happened to George Floyd that have happened to white people. And I used them. I made a video called Black Lives Matter, because the whole thing's a lie. Well, and again, an awakening moment for some people, when Black Lives Matter started, we spoke about it, and they on the website it says a white supremacist killed Trayvon James, the white supremacist. He was Hispanic. It's like he's not white.
Oh, Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin. So
yeah.
Why,
George Zimmerman.
George Zimmerman.
Yeah.
So why? So you ask, it's like, why would this website and this organisation be telling me he's a white supremacist? So, and if you're the public and you don't know what he looks like, you're going to believe he's a white supremacist. So black people are literally being told by the machine that they're being hunted down and killed.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Hands up, don't shoot was never said, according to the black witnesses. Just a lie again. But it's a lie that, like Islam is religion of peace, it's a lie that's spread around the world, said enough, becomes matter of fact. Black people in the UK actually believe that black people in America are being hunted down and murdered at a rate. When I looked at it, you're more likely to die as a white person, percentage-wise, same as in custody over here. So with the black community, I named all these names. I said, you don't know who any of them are, do you? It's like, we go on about Black Lives Matter, but do our lives matter? Certainly don't, our daughters don't. We have had 1,400 children in Rotherham. And again, the statistics and the facts and the numbers are something that's so important for people to understand. In my Telford investigation, Telford is a small town in the UK. I've done a 5-part, it's going to be a 6-part series on the rape, called The Rape of Britain, where I look at these gangs of Pakistani, majority Pakistani, but not all Pakistani, Afghani, Somali, Kurdistan, Iraqi, from every Islamic nation, the men from these gangs are raping kids in the UK. Now, Telford has 1.7% Muslim population. 1.6, small town, no Muslims per se. I remember when I was going up there, people said, you've got to be really careful of all the Muslim gangs. I'm from Luton, 50% Pakistani. Yeah? The biggest terrorist gangs in the country come out of my town. Yeah? I know what the Islamic gangs are like. And I went to Telford, but they've got the whole town in fear. Everyone's scared of this 1.7%. So the police investigation identified 200 men that have been involved in raping kids. They identified, that's the police report. I identified 254. An independent inquiry identified 350. So I took the Islamic community and I got rid of the women and I got rid of the under 16s and I got rid of the over 70s. There's 1,000 men. So out of 1,000 men, we know that 20% of them, the police identified 20% of the Muslim men in that town raping children. We're not talking about a handful of people here. This is in Telford. You've also heard of Rotherham. American audience may have heard of Rotherham. There's only a 3.7% Muslim population in Rotherham. There's none there. So when we get the 2 towns we've been given the figures for, 1,000 victims in Telford, 5 are dead. 1,000 victims, 5 are dead. 200 men, 20% of the men are raping them. Yeah? Rotherham, 3.7% Muslim population. There's none there either. Yeah? but there's 1,400 victims. Okay, out of that 200 people who the police identified, they charged 11. What about the other 189? Well, they just don't get done for raping kids. They charge 11. So in each town, they're just doing like a little gesture. We nick a few of them, let the rest off. Nick a few of them, let the rest off. But the figures like in towns like Birmingham, Luton, large Muslim populations of 50% upwards, we'll never get the figures. And we saw this in a town called Oldham. So in Oldham, once they're in council, Oldham's a 35% Muslim population, I believe. They put it to a vote of the local council for an independent inquiry into the grooming of young white girls. They said no, because they now all work for the Muslims. So you don't even get the numbers, you don't even get the investigation. That's the infiltration of your political system, infiltration of your councils to block and protect the criminality of members of their own community.
And briefly, if you could talk about Stratty Park Hotel.
Stratty Park Hotel was like a village with a population of 400 people in Wales. Yeah? And they said they were putting 300 undocumented men into that village. Now imagine what that would do for the women in the village. Bearing in mind, I'm not fear mongering. Again, these are facts. Yeah? In certain towns in the UK where they put these migrant men in hotels, there have been case after case of the migrant men have kidnapped people and raped them. Yeah? Fact. Okay. So we don't know who these men are. The 400 villagers don't know who the men are. We don't know what their criminal records are. There's no women or children with them. There's just men. The strain on services. So the local community come out and they started protesting. Now, in a free society, a democratic society with freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, you would be able to legitimately come out and do that. What the police did is what they've done to me dating back in 2009 and what they've done to me since this point. I'm banned from London now. I haven't committed a crime. They went and arrested people for crimes that they knew they wouldn't prosecute them on. But then they give them conditions. Not allowed to talk online or in person about the hotel or the migrant situation. So they literally took away their freedom of speech. They took away their freedom of assembly because they dared. They dared to want to protect their community where they've lived and their parents have lived and their grandparents have lived and their next generations will live. Maybe not now, because as they change the demographics of our country, everyone's getting driven out. But they attempted to protest it. They were arrested. They were violently beaten up. And then they just dropped it all. Or it got to court and they saw the evidence and they didn't get done. But again, the process is the punishment. We spoke to people yesterday who've lost their jobs. Mm-hmm. We spoke to people who have gone through stress, who have been depressed, who have been off work ill. And what is it they've actually done? They've exercised their freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And all of the people we met yesterday said that the society they now understand they live in is different to the one they thought they lived in, which I went through that. I went through this process as long ago as 2009. So I've been fully aware we don't have freedom of speech or freedom of assembly. We do live in a police state. We do not have freedom of the press. Try and use it.
You're doing a full-length documentary on the Chris Donald story and the Stratty Park Hotel. Where can people go to see those?
My Rumble channel, which is Tommy Robinson Official. My Twitter handle, unfortunately, Elon Musk says about citizen journalism. I am the best citizen journalist in the UK. I'm the best investigative journalist in the UK. I'm not just blowing my own trumpet on the documentaries we do.
You're definitely the hardest working. I can vouch for that, man. Hell yeah.
But they and he search banned me, so I've managed to gather 450,000 followers, I think, at the minute. But if you go on and try and find Tommy Robinson, you won't find me. You literally have to put in T Robinson at T Robinson New Era, NEWERA, to find my account. So I'm on there. I'm on Telegram, Tommy Robinson News. I work for a company called Urban Scoop. Yeah. So that's what our documentaries are and our social media.
Just a couple of final questions here. If you had a warning or advice for the people of the United States based on what you're seeing here, what would that be?
They're coming for your free speech. They can't conquer you without you taking your free speech. They have to control the press and the free speech. So that is the biggest warning. Well, we're disarmed anyway, yeah? So that will be part of the process, but it's the attack on freedom of speech. And I hear America saying, yeah, we've got the Constitution. Yeah, but have you? If they control big tech, if they control, where do people go for their news now? They go to tech, yeah? They're not watching the news, okay? They're on this, right? If they control this, they control your free speech. They've got your free speech. So, essentially, so yeah, the biggest warning is they're coming for your speech.
What's the future hold for Tommy Robinson? Are we going to see a Tommy Robinson member of parliament?
Tommy Robinson member of parliament? I've always said I was pushed that way, and I think a lot of people have asked me to go that way in November. I believe my role is to change opinion and awaken people. And I might not be the person that brings about change, but I hope I inspire the person that does. So I want to do my journalism. I think that's my power. And I think I'm good at what I do and telling stories. I think I can tell a story that gets people to sit and watch and understand what's happening. And essentially, I think if you look at the work we've created and the content we've created, we've done it for shoestring. If I had what Sky News have got, even the GB News, these alternative, I think give me that show, yeah, and watch what I do. And I remember when we had the English Defence League, I used to say, look what we've done with nothing, yeah. We'd finish Islam. We'd awaken the whole world if we had the resources to do so. But I think of what we do and the time we have, we're doing great work. And again, I wouldn't be able to do any of that work. I'm comfortable sitting here. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'll possibly face jail again, but I sit here quite comfortable in that knowledge because I know that my family will be supported, and I'm confident in that. Whereas I wasn't years ago. Yeah, I'm confident now that if my family needed help and I was in custody, there's an army of British public that wish to support me. Many of them are worried too, concerned too, but they're all going through an awakening. Europe's going through an awakening. America's going through an awakening. The West is going through an awakening. So,
Tommy Robinson, we had a busy week this week. And I want to thank
yet,
you.
bro.
Yeah, no, we have a little more, but I want to thank you for giving me a peek behind the curtain that is Tommy Robinson.
Thanks.
Everywhere we went, you were treated like a national hero. And
that's fulfilling for me.
I saw none of the negativity that we see in the
I'm the
media.
most hated man in Britain, apparently.
No, you're not. No, you're not, Akaba. You know what I think can sum it up is when we were walking through the airport, there was a black man and his family. He walked up to you and he fist bumped you, and this little boy said, "Dad, who was that?" And the man said, "That was Tommy Robinson, son. Yeah. He's a man who knows."
Who knows? Yeah, I know.
Yes, and I think that's right. Tommy Robinson is a man who knows.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Enjoyable. Cheers.